I think it's very easy for people to forget how important nature is. We have an ever larger proportion of the global population live in urban environments. But nature, natural landscapes, plants, animals are vital to all humanity. They provide food, they provide oxygen, they provide fibres, building materials, fuel. Our mission at the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew is to protect global plant and fungal biodiversity for the benefit of our planet and for the benefit of humanity. And that is urgent because we live in an age of extinction. The biodiversity crisis is real and present, and Kew has to respond to it with urgency and immediacy.
A lot of people know about Kew by being this fantastic garden in southwest London, but actually we are one of the world's leading organizations in plant and fungal science.
We have one of the biggest collections of botanical information anywhere in the world.
We have the largest collection of fungi in the world, 1.25 million specimens.
We have such a diversity of plants that are rare, endangered.
And those are amazing resources in this mission for understanding, protecting, and sustainably using the world's biodiversity.
Our horticultural mission is to create beautiful displays that are engaging and inspiring, and we are supporting global conservation work and scientific research.
So you'll see ornamental plants, nice flowers, but also we grow some of the world's rarest plants. We've got a number that are either extinct in the wild or critically endangered in the wild.
Wakehurst is no ordinary botanic garden. We call ourselves Kew's Wild Botanic Garden, but there's a reason behind that. So we plant according to where we found those plants in the world. And it gives you the chance to walk through different landscapes from different parts of this planet.
The Millennium seed bank is actually the most biodiverse place on the planet, which is just amazing. So there's more than 40,000 species stored in our seed vaults here. We currently have active projects in more than 50 countries. We have agreements with all of those partners so that they feel confident that we can conserve and look after their genetic diversity here in the UK, as well as banking it in the country of origin.
Understanding the fundamental importance of plants to life on Earth is really important. So learning at Kew is about light bulb moments. It's about providing children and adults with fascinating information and experiences about plant and fungal science and horticulture. And who knows, in 20 years' time, some of those children may be walking back through our gates as Kew scientists.
We have learned through the COVID pandemic that if we degrade nature, there is a very, very high price to pay.
Everybody who is here is because they really believe in what we're doing to conserve this diversity and save it for future generations.
I hope everybody come to Kew leave with the feeling that we have a beautiful diversity of plants that we need to preserve.
Hello, I'm Monique Simmonds. I'm one of the Deputy Directors of Science here at the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew. And we're standing here in the Temperate House. Now, why are we standing here? It's part of the glasshouses at Kew. It's a really important historical glasshouse, and as you can see, it's got a huge diversity of plants. Now, one of my tasks at Kew is to help identify plants that can be used in products, for example, in cosmetics. So how do you select plants that could be used? Well, we can look at how plants defend themselves from being affected by UV, and how they help protect themselves against, the just general aspects of the environment. That's one area that we can look for, the plants that have got features associated with them, like glossy leaves, or got the chemistry in them, the ingredients that they have to protect themselves. But which plant do we actually select? This is where sustainability comes in. We really need to select plants where we know that they have a sustainable supply of the material. And that could be a simple thing like, choosing plants where we're going to use the leaves rather than the bark or the stems of plants. And where do those plants come from? Are the communities that look after those plants, are they going to be able to produce enough plant material that would enable a supplier of the extracts that are going to be made from that plant to meet the needs of industry. So sometimes you really have to think about the whole story of how that plant is going to be used. Is it going to be something that's going to be a mainstay, large volume cosmetics, or is it going to be something that's going to be used in low volume? Because if that's the case, then you don't need such a big supply chain. So selecting the plant is kind of the first stage, without always knowing whether it's going to have that potential ingredients in it that actually could give you the value for use in cosmetics. So we start off, okay, which of the plants, which is the area of the world that we could be selecting those plants from. And then we have to evaluate their use. Now sometimes plants are used as tokens to suggestion because of their beauty in themselves. So you can have the picture of the plant, and there might be what's called a kind of a token extract from that plant that could be used in a cosmetic. And other stages where you actually have what we term the functionality. They actually contribute to the features of that cosmetic, i.e. they've got moisturizing effects, they've got preservative effects, they might affect development of wrinkles, etc. Then the key is those plants got the right ingredients in them that will have those properties. And do they have them at the concentration that will be economically viable? And this is where you really need to get to the plants that you're going to use for the production of a cosmetic. Because the literature might indicate that that plant could have those properties, but when you actually start to study the ingredients, you don't find that that's the case. And this is sometimes where a botanic garden can be helpful, because we can look at the plants, what have they got? Now, these plants aren't exposed to the same environmental conditions that would happen if they were growing out in the wild. That might mean that they don't have the ingredients in them at the levels you would have if you were outside collecting them from the wild. But it allows us to look for the potential in that particular species of plant. Then we come to kind of the supply chain. You need to make sure that the area that you're going to be growing these plants is going to give you a sustainable supply. And also, what's the impact of growing those plants on, say, use of that land for food? So this is where sometimes we have to complement, because you don't want, to deprive people of land that could actually be used for food. So can you look at how something that could be used to complement it? It's a food plus also the potential of cosmetics. This gets us into the other area of sustainability where you've got the food trade already in place. Can we be looking at, say, the skins of apples for ingredients that can be used in cosmetics, or the pips from apples, or parts of the avocado that aren't used commercially for foods? So you really do need to have an overview of the whole chain of supply chain of plant material for use in cosmetics. So using the collections at Kew can assist us identify the plants that we're possibly going to evaluate, and then we can look at, where do those plants naturally incur, where are they indigenous, and therefore you could say, how could the communities that will support those plants, how can they benefit? And that's often a really important aspect of sustainability, to link it up with the community so they benefit from growing those plants. So the end user benefits, the supplier benefits, but key is the community also benefits. And so that they're part of the story as well as gaining an income from growing those plants for the use and extracts that are going to go into products. And we do quite a lot of work at Kew in helping to identify areas of the world where the plants can be grown, and therefore some of the communities that can benefit from this particular use. Now, there are some really good examples of the link between communities. For example, argan oil coming from Morocco, where you still have some of the local people involved in the supply, especially the female communities there. So you've got the plant being conserved because there is a use. So you've got also local traditions being supported. And then you've got the females that are involved in collecting the berries, etc., and therefore also making the oil that then can be supplied to the industry. So you kind of got a circle going on here. And in a way, that's what we're trying to encourage, recognition of the different players that are involved in developing products based on nature. It really is important that this happens. The other areas that we get involved in here at Kew is looking at the safety of those plants, because you could identify something that's going to be used, but actually it's possibly not all that safe because it's got other ingredients in it that could be harmful. Maybe they cause allergies on the skin, especially if the skin is exposed to light. And we then use our knowledge about the ingredients in plants that could be associated with detrimental effects. So you can't always say that nature is based, nature is safe. You really need to have a knowledge about what the ingredients of a plant are, especially if it's a new plant that you're bringing forward as a potential lead for the cosmetic industry. The other aspect of Kew's work is to look at biodiversity and stopping biodiversity loss. Now, people often aren't aware of the fact that 1 in 4 species of plants is potentially threatened. And it's sometimes that if you can get a value on a plant, and that is in this case commercial value, you can give a community a voice in helping to protect it, not only that particular species, but the habitat that species lives in, because they're often very, very connected. So what we are trying to do is not always come up with the same plants that have been used in, universally. Something like aloe. Aloe actually is very, very good. But where's the next aloe? Where's the next lotus plant that could be used as a product? I'm sure it's going to be out there, but we just need to help discover it and make sure that it can be produced in a safe way. Discover it as scientists, but often you'll find that traditional use, the communities, etc., will have knowledge about that. So that's why it's important that we go to work with communities in those areas, capture some of the knowledge they have about their uses of plants in ways that they also benefit, so they're part of the task. Because often they know how best to treat that plant material, when it should be harvested, because plants vary in their ingredients over the year, etc. So why do they use those plants and not those plants? Often it's something that we really need to learn from them. And if we are able to get more plants coming to the market, it will assist those communities gain an income from those plants, and therefore support the use of biodiversity, and then it contributes a little bit, therefore, to stopping biodiversity loss, which is a key here, especially if we're going to have an increased interest in the use of plant material in cosmetics. What we really want to avoid is the over-exploitation as well of a particular species. And that's where you get things like, with palm oil, because it is so effective. More people are growing it, etc., and therefore land is deforested to be able to grow more palm oil. We want to avoid the next palm oil situation. We really want to make sure that we're integrated with those plants in the habitats. So it's not just creating more monocultures. This is really an important area. We need to have this holistic approach to using biodiversity in commercial products, whatever they are. So we've covered why we're in the temperate house and the importance it is for biodiversity to be used in plants. Then we're going to go through and look at the process that we use to make sure that you have the right plant that's been used in a product, and also the quality of that extract that's going to be used is appropriate, i.e. it contains the right ingredients. It's a process that we call botanical fingerprinting. Kew is very much a scientific organisation with an idea to have a better understanding of plants and fungi and the importance that they have in our lives. One of the tasks that we do here is the authentication of plant or fungal extracts that could be used in products. Plants and fungi are actually used in a whole array of material, say from your shaving creams to your cosmetics to your hair products. As a plant-based product becomes more popular, that's often when you'll get what we term adulterants entering the trade that is potentially toxic. That's really why you need to have this authentication, so you can be absolutely sure that it's the right species and if it contains the chemical fingerprints that are associated with, you could say, good quality. So we get an extract that comes from the company. We'll be provided with information about what it should contain and the species. So the first thing is to use our collections here at Kew of authenticated material. Now those could be from the herbarium where we have the dried samples, or it could be the living collection. And then we will compare that with the extract that we have got from the company. Then we will be looking at the quality control. For something like argan oil, which is used in hair products, it's the essential oil, it's the fatty acids that are the key. So here we'll be using gas chromatography to look at the chemistry there. Then we get something like aloe, where it's a group of actually very complex molecules called polysaccharides. We analyse those using nuclear magnetic resonance. And then we'll get something like coffee, where we're more interested in the antioxidant type chemistry, and for that we need liquid chromatography, mass spectrometry. To have a really good authenticated quality extract is very important. We're helping the public know that if they see the authentication mark of Kew on a product, say like a cosmetic, that it actually is what it says it is and it contains the right chemistry. So I hope you now have a better understanding of aspects of sustainability with regards to botanical supplies, through selecting the plants all the way through to make sure that that extract that's actually going into a product is of good quality.